So overall, I think the 12-team college football playoff ended up being a success. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of tweaks that need to be made with the scheduling of the games. Like you can't have the national championship on January 20th conflicting with the NFL playoffs. You got to have the transfer portal be fixed. Obviously, the auto buys has been a big topic of conversations throughout the year. But there was great games. We ended up getting a result where two teams that would not have been in the initial four, even though I think Notre Dame, they would have put Notre Dame in if it was only four. But that's just a different conversation. You had two teams that are outside of the top four playing in the national champion with the number 6 team winning it. So I think that shows a lot. Maybe people don't like that with a team that losing to a 7-5 team making and winning the national championship, but that's neither here nor there. So today I'm here to rank the 11 games, starting with the first one, which was Indiana Notre Dame, the first taste of a home college football playoff game, and yeah, it delivered. All of them, all the atmospheres delivered. That's one thing. All of them delivered. They all made these games better. You know, a couple of them were really blowouts. So Indiana Notre Dame, and we'll start with Indiana Notre Dame, our first taste of a home playoff game, which all the atmosphere delivered. All of these atmospheres made these games so much better, even though a couple of them were blowouts. Notre Dame, Indiana. Indiana started to drive at the beginning of the game. Like, yeah, they could be in this. So Curtis Rourke throws a pick, and it went downhill from there. It ended up going to like what? It ended up being like 27-3 at one point. Indiana ends up coming back. I say coming back in heavy quotes. They ends up just scoring 2 late garbage time touchdowns, and it ends up looking a lot better than it actually was. So probably this game should be blowout just because it was the first home playoff game. I'll put it in a decent game. Clemson, Texas. Clemson held. Clemson held with Texas the entire game in Austin. It was a one-score game. They had the opportunity, I guess domino effect, but still. They had the opportunity to potentially tie it. Even though at this point it was a 2-score game, when they were at the 1-yard line, they ended up scoring again. And so it was a 2-score game at the end, but it was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. Clemson came back from a 21-point deficit, I want to say. Pretty sure it was a 21-point deficit. It may have even been higher. So just because a decent fourth quarter, I'll give it a decent game. Actually, no, I'll give it a decent game. Tennessee, Ohio State was a blowout. It was a slaughtering. It was 21-0 in 10 minutes. In Tennessee, they made it a 11-point game at one point, and that was the rest of the scoring they did until another late garbage time touchdown. Same with SMU, Penn State. SMU, they came to play. They came to play at the beginning, and then they had that drop fourth down touchdown, and Kevin Jennings throws a couple of picks, and then game was over. That's it. Now, Texas, Arizona State, game should not have been anywhere as good as it was. I think, it was the highest spread of any game of the college football playoffs, and it was a tremendous game. It's a really, really good game. I think you had the entire country rooting for Arizona State. It was 24. What was the score? 24-3. Yeah, and then SMU gets a safety, and then they get the 2 touchdowns with 2-point conversions, and then another field goal on top of that. And the Cam Scatterbo throwing for a touchdown on fourth down, 50 yards, and then his 50-yard deep pass. And they were right there. The 4th and 13, or I think it was Matthew Golden who caught the 4th down. He gets open behind everybody, which just can't happen for Arizona State. Then Texas ends up winning in double OT. So yeah, that game, obviously incredible. Penn State, Boise State was actually a good game. I'll put it in decent game, but it's definitely not it's still a lot better game than that Indiana Notre Dame game, even though they are on the same tier here. Boise State at one point, besides a stupid penalty, had the opportunity to make a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. They don't. Penn State kept them within arms, or Boise State kept them within arm's reach, but they were just never able to get there. It was mainly a 10-point game for most of the second half. Except for over on Boise made it a 3-point game early in the second half. Then Penn State blows away. It looks like a 17-point game. It was definitely a lot closer considering Boise outgained Penn State. But Boise felt like it was getting close, but it didn't feel like right there that it was theirs for the taking. Notre Dame, Georgia, this game was, I don't want to put it wasn't really a blowout, but I'll put it in a blowout. It wasn't, I was on a flight. So I didn't really get to watch this game. And so Georgia, Notre Dame, I only can say by the scores that it was 6-3. Notre Dame takes or 6-3 at half. Notre Dame takes the opening kickoff back, and the entire second half isn't even close. So that's what I can say. I don't have the feel for this game. It's the only game I didn't get to watch fully. So this is where I'm putting it. Oregon, Ohio State, this was the biggest slaughtering, the biggest unexpected slaughtering. 34-0 in the first, with like 10 seconds left in the first half. Absurd. And then Oregon starts to, they score again, and it was like, maybe Oregon can make the score look better. They kind of did. It still ended up being a 20-point game, though. Obviously, disappointment, but with what Ohio State ended up doing the entire playoffs, they were so angry after the Michigan game, and they just ended up blowing out everybody. They didn't blow out everybody, but their average margin of victory was like in the playoffs was an absurd amount. And then we have the next one. Ohio State, Texas was a great game. It obviously, again, it's one of those games that looks a lot worse than it was. Texas was at the 1 yard line with 2.5 minutes left to tie the game, and that pitch play was awful. End up trying to go outside, I think it's just trying to do too much. Texas was getting cute on the goal line, and you end up going from would have been 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 at worst, maybe 3rd and 3. You end up getting 3rd and 7, and that was it. And then Jack Sawyer has a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Makes it look a lot worse than it was, but it was still a great game. Texas was right there. I'll leave the national championship for last. Penn State, Notre Dame, I'll put an all-time classic. They were just going band for band with each other. Penn State came out 10-0. Notre Dame ends up fighting back. Second half, super close. Drew Aller throws that pick. Stupid pick. And Jaden Greathouse had the 50-yard touchdown too. Just the fourth quarter was electric in that game. It's two really good teams. Two teams that deserve to be in the national championship too. So, yeah, great game. Then we have Ohio State, Notre Dame. I'm going to put it in good game because, it was really not close the entire game. It wasn't. Notre Dame has that crazy good opening drive, but you kind of knew that was not going to stick because you had, how many times did you run it with Riley Leonard? That drive, 8, 9? Yeah, that was never going to stick. They were never going to be able to sustain that. And then Ohio State goes, they rattle off 3 touchdowns, 21-7. And when did they make it? Did they make it 31-7? They did. Yeah, it became 31-7. Notre Dame gets 2 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions. All of a sudden, it's 31-23. And Ohio State has the ball, and the Jeremiah Smith 50-yard touchdown. He hadn't done anything in the last 2 playoff games besides a 1 touchdown at the beginning of the national championship. And you get Jeremiah Smith man-to-man for once in the past 2 games, and it was over. So because of it is a national championship, because the end of the fourth quarter actually ended up being pretty good, I'm going to put it in good game. But that's the playoffs. So, yeah, we have a lot more at the bottom 2 than the top 3, which isn't great. But I think this is hopefully, I don't want to say this is a one-off because it's going to happen again where there's a lot of blowouts at the college football playoffs. It'll probably happen every year. It's just the nature of it. But I think especially this year with a lot of these teams, I think, fucking around too much and end up losing to worse teams like Alabama did twice. Ole Miss did twice. South Carolina didn't. Who else was in that range? Miami did twice. I think a lot more teams are going to be prioritizing the regular season, which is, I think, something nobody thought anybody would be saying about the college football playoffs. But I think these lower tier matchups are going to be taken a lot more seriously just to prevent, you end up being 9-3, 10-2, and the 10-2 SEC team wouldn't be out like in this situation, but like it end up being 9-3 and out of the playoffs. I think that's going to be prevented a lot more. I think maybe next year we can see more inflated records like we had the previous season when we had like the highest ranking top 12 in a decade or two. I think we can see more of that, which would allow, a better teams to get in. Obviously, it allows for less of your SMU's and Indiana's, but allows more of your hopefully good games. So we'll see. We'll see. Also see the tweaks that they make because I expect them to do that. I don't think the auto buys are going to change this year. I think the only thing that really will change is the scheduling, which obviously is just a big win for us as fans. So thank you guys for watching. Join the Discord. See you.